Okay, so we're starting off with this footage of the girl dancing, and it's quite unusual. I don't normally get stock footage this way, where it's shot sideways. Basically, they've just tilted the camera 90 degrees. Now, this actually is quite a good idea. If you know that your talent isn't going to be moving much left or right, then this is always a good idea, because the girl is now filling up far more of the camera in a full-length shot. You know, she's got basically close to, let's say, 1600 pixels left to right. Now, if you were to shoot that 90 degrees landscape format, she would be taking up probably half of that amount, 900 maybe, vertical. So even though she's going to be, you know, still in shot, there's more pixels making her up. So that means you've got more detail to play with. Another good thing about this footage is there's good separation between her and the background. It's fairly evenly lit. You know, it's a lot brighter down here around her feet than it is up here, and that's going to affect how we get into it later. But either way, for now, it's actually pretty good. There is a bit of spill and shading around her feet, which can be a pain. There's a bit of spill on her trousers, kind of beige color, and fairly good separation on her caramel color jacket and chestnut hair. So yeah, it's a pretty decent bit of footage. That's ultimately what you're trying to get. If you can get footage where there's a large distance, physical distance between your talent and your backdrop, that's going to make it a lot easier, because you're not going to have any issues with dirt, dust, fluff, etc. on the backdrop, because it's going to be out of focus due to the distance, and there's not going to be any shadows cast, and that's going to cause all sorts of problems. So there's, you could write a book about shooting footage for green screen, and as long as you get the basics down, you'll be okay. So let's get this started. Okay, so I've already brought in 3 instances of the clip. I've broken them into 3 separate layers with masks: feet, body and head. Main reason being, the green down by her feet is lighter compared to the darker green up around her head, and that can cause problems. We're also going to need to have probably a separate bit of roto for the shadows under her feet, but we'll come to that in due course. So for now, I'm going to crack on with keying out the feet. Now, there's a lot of different workflows for this, and I'm just going to go through the most basic side of things for an introductory tutorial. So generally, when you open up Keylight, this is what you get. Screen color is always set to black, screen gain, screen balance, yada yada yada, it's all the defaults. So we use the eyedropper. Let's go over here by the ankle, or the leg, and boom, there we go. Now, final result is not what we'll be looking at in this tutorial. It's mainly intermediate result and screen matte. So you can see the difference straight away. Intermediate result, it does not have any sort of spill suppression applied to the clip, so you can see a lot of green coming in from the background. You can also see a lot of noise. So I'm going to go into the screen matte view, where we can get a better look at things. And the main parameters are going to be changing are under the screen matte drop down. So over here, we'll be looking at clip white and clip black. Now, what we're looking to do is to get the talent to be completely white, the background to be completely black. So just alpha channel stuff. And we just do that by moving clip black and clip white up and down. Zoom in a little and we can start to see some holes. Now, that doesn't really matter. We're trying to get a good clean edge, because we're going to be doing this process twice. One to get a good clean edge, and another to get a good core. So right now we're focusing on the clean edge, which can be the harder part. So we'll just leave it at that. We'll move on. The edge is looking okay. There are a couple of other plugins that we're going to look at for refining our mattes or edges, but I think that's actually looking okay, and I think we can move on to the next one. And we'll take the green from just here by her jacket, and we'll go into screen matte and see how it's going for us. A lot of noise, obviously, as you'd expect. Again, we're just trying to get that edge good and crisp. There's a few other compositing tricks and tips that we'll look at, such as light wrap and the refine matte, but for now that edge is looking okay. Let's have a quick look via intermediate result. Okay, all right. Super. Okay, and let's have a look at head. Now in this case, she's not throwing her hair around much, or if at all, and in those cases you would have to do a separate key for her hair combined with potentially a bit of roto, and that's when things start to get difficult. So not really the case here, so we're okay. Let's check and see how it looks under screen matte. Yeah, doing okay. Bit of fuzz up there, not right around there. Intermediate results, okay, bit of spill, but the edge looks acceptable. Motion blur will also be a nightmare, and stray masks, we having that. These garbage masks, as they're known, you gotta watch out for them. You have to cut enough of the green screen so it's Keylight can do a better job in and around areas that matter. Also, you can't be masking out your limbs of your actors, dancers. Not a good look. So again, we're going for a decent edge on this one. I'll be able to bring it back any other details using the core key that we're going to look at next. So the edge is what I'm looking for here. It's important to get it clean, but not, you know, don't want to lose too much of your edge either, you know. Give yourself something to work with. Okay, that's looking at halfway decent. Put that back to intermediate result. Great. Cool. Alright, that might need a bit of work. We're also going to I might be able to get rid of it in the composite as well, but sometimes you will have to go in frame by frame and mask stuff out. Okay, so I've got another comp with same setup, feet, body and head. So we'll just go through it one more time. I've got the mask off again, so let's see how we get on. Now this one, the edge doesn't really matter so much, and we are going to be shrinking it back. The important part is to get all the details and have no holes. Excellent. Okay, so that's going to be our core. We're going to need a choker on that. So a choker is an effect that will limit or expand the alpha channel of a layer. So I'm going to put in a new adjustment layer, so it's going to affect a lot of them. There's two ways of doing it. Control Option Y for the keyboard shortcut, or right click, new adjustment layer. So there we go. And up here we're going to type choker, and we got two main types, simple and matte. So for this one, it's just going to be simple choker. There's no refinement. It just sucks it all in. Matte choker, you can feather it. You can change the look of it a lot. You know, the softness. You can see what it does. Now, this kind of thing, it isn't always blindingly obvious what it's good for. But when you start applying a choker to motion graphics, it's really cool for transitions with animating text in and out. Or I've seen it used a lot in cell division and multiplication, and it looks really quite cool. So let's see how let's see how the simple choker works. And that's just giving it quite a decent edge. I might need to feather that a bit, so I think 20, that's around 15 to 20. All right, well, I can turn it off and see how the matte choker looks. And softness is good. Let's drag that back in a bit. Having a bit of softness to it is quite good actually, so but you're limited with how far it will go in. Okay, that's looking alright. Let's give that name. Okay, so here we are with our 2 layers combined, and we're going to be adding a couple of effects, mainly to the edge key, to refine that edge just a little better. So first thing we're going to do is not edge blur, but key cleaner. So there's a straight away you can see a difference. You know, there's a lot less fringing. There's a slight blur on it. I'm going to bring this down to something like 2. I don't want it too soft around the edge, and reduce chatter, which should keep that edge a bit more consistent. Alpha contrast, you can bump that up quite a lot to 100%. And if we go down here to the RGB and channels view, let's go to alpha and we'll see how it looks there. So straight away you can see that we've got the makings of a very good key. And let's check the difference that alpha contrast makes. It's making it a much harder edge all around. So I'm just going to see how we're going to try 75 for now. I might change that, come back and change it. Okay, cool. So the next one we need is similar to what we would have encountered in the rotobrush workflows, and that's the refine, soft and hard mats. So I'm going to start with the soft matte just to see what works best. Again, that's starting to pixelate things a little too much with the default settings, so let's bring that back a bit. Again, that's at 10 pixels, so let's try 2. You have to be wary of chatter and everything, especially when the legs and whatnot there, or edges of her jacket. There's quite a lot of different settings here, and again, it's finessing. You know, you can spend quite a lot of time at this and not really realize that you're making it worse. So sometimes it's good to just, what I call silly settings, like change it to something ridiculous, just so you can see how bad can be. So if I smooth it out too much, it just becomes an amorphous blob, which that can work for motion graphics and things, but not on a key. So bring that back to 1. You do need a bit of smoothness, but not too much. The same for feather, that'll blur the edge a bit more. Same as a feathered mask. So it's not going to work, obviously. And the contrast is just changing how quickly or harshly it's going to go from black to white. So there we go. Chatter reduction, more detailed. So that's going to obviously slow down our previews quite a bit. Smoother, slower. Yeah, not entirely convinced with that up there. View edge region. Oops. I need to go back to the RGB view. Oh no, I don't like that. So let's see what these settings have actually done. It looked like the alpha was okay, but soft matte. I was trying this earlier. I didn't get much joy with it. Just, you know, it can happen. So I'll turn that off, and let's have a look at the hard matte. Okay. So that's good. The gap between her arm and her hair is legit. A feather 0.5. Contrast about 10, I think will work there. Reduce chatter. And you want that to be as effective as it can be. Decontaminate edge. Extend where smoothed. Okay. Now we don't have motion blur on. So refine soft matte, I'm not going to use today. And now I will add an edge blur. So this is subtle again. Subtle is key with everything in keying. So again, we can go with the silly settings and see what happens. And let's have a quick look if we put on a choker. So I'll try matte choker maybe. Gotta be careful with this because I could end up overdoing it without realizing. Okay, that's something to bear in mind. And now for everything, there's still a lot of green spill, so what I'm going to do is add an adjustment layer, which will affect both of them, and we're just going to apply spill suppressor. So there's quite a few spill suppression effects inside of After Effects, which are all worth your time at various points. The main one's the key correct spill killer and the advanced spill killer. So let's have a look at them, and we'll try the spill killer first, see how it goes. It's pretty decent actually. So on, off. It's telling me that I'm going to have problems because it's not optimized for multi-frame rendering. It's okay, it's an older effect. And advanced. So best thing we can do is turn that on. We'll take a snapshot using the camera icon down here. This will help us compare and contrast our two clip effects. So I'm going to change it from standard to ultra. I'm leaving everything else as it is. And that's what it is with spill killer, and this is it with advanced spill suppressor. So that's what we're going to go with, much better. Okay, so let's have a quick look at that. Okay, it's looking all right. Okay, it's still a bit of stuff there. We're going to be scaling this down a bit in the next composition, so let's crack on with that. Okay, so I've got my final comp here, and I've got this footage of a beach, and I've already camera tracked it. So it doesn't take too long, but it's just some subtle handheld movement, nothing too crazy. But what I'll do is I'll select some of these green trackers, a load of them, and right click on one. I'll go to set ground plane and origin. That's going to tell After Effects that this is where 0, 0, 0 is, the middle of everything is. So that's cool. Thanks After Effects. And now I'll do create text in camera. Cool. So here we go. Let's see how it looks. Locked. Brilliant. 0.39 pixels average error. That's looking good. Okay, so grab my footage of our dance of our girl keyed out. There she is. Okay, and I'll make her 3D. Boom. And turn that around. Flying blind on this. I'm gonna need the anchor point, center point to be down by her feet. So selected that's known as the Y tool, or the pan behind anchor point tool. And I'm just going to move it down to her feet a bit, and go in between, hit V for move, reposition the anchor point. Cool. Alright, now I'll grab the position from here. So she is extremely large in the scene, so I think the scales are probably not going to match, but I don't think really matters. I find it useful as well to add a few more trackers or null points, because we can always grab the position info and move the girl around that way, so it lines up that bit better. So let's see, let's bring that down to 30 and see how we go. Okay, 30%. Now the scale and the lighting in these two clips don't match. Even though she's flipped, she's been reversed according to the original footage. That doesn't matter, but either way the lighting does not match, because this is kind of coming from behind over here somewhere, all the way in the distance over the horizon down here. Anyway, let's work with what we have. Alright, so let's concentrate on getting her into the shot and looking the best that we can. First of all, I'm going to add some curves and levels, basic color grading to our background layer. A bit more contrast. Now we're going to need to do the same for our lady. Again, subtle is best. I'll leave it at that for now. And now to set the composite into the background that bit better, we're going to use an effect called light wrap. Now, light wrap there's two ways of doing it. First way is with the Red Giant plugin. The second way is building it up with a couple of different layers, and I'll show you that in a moment. The easiest way is with this light wrap plugin. And all you do is drag and drop onto our main layer. Now we're going to need to point it to the background footage. If we just look around the edge there. There we go. It just gives a nice subtle fringing around the side. So you can make it as big or as small as you like and see how it looks. Maybe something like 5 could do the trick. And I need it to be looking at the curves adjustment layer, or the curves adjustment I've put onto my background footage. So the background blur, you can decide how much you want. So that's the simple, fast way to do it. If you don't have Red Giant's light wrap, then we will do it a different way. So what I'll do is I will find this in my project to reveal, right click, reveal layer source in project, girl dancing main. Now I'm going to duplicate that. I'm going to call it girl dancing light wrap. So we've got two versions of the girl already keyed here. So what I want is the difference between that and that little edge. So it's going to be fairly simple. We just track map the edge key to the choke, and we should just get a very basic light wrap. Turn back on my adjustment layer. I can blur this out a bit more if you want. You may not need these effects. We may need those effects. And that choker effect's going to help us here. So I think between 25 and 30, because I need this to be kind of small. Should do the job. Okay, so let's go back into Final Beach Comp and we'll duplicate our girl layer. We'll open up our project panel again, Control 0, and we'll take our girl dancing light wrap, which is just the edge, and we'll click and hold down Alt as we drag it and release. Okay, so that's what it looks like. Now I need the background footage of the waves and the beach to use this as an alpha. So I'll duplicate my background footage and delete the camera tracker on that one. Keep the curves. Change the track mat to girl dancing light wrap. And obviously it's blending into it, but when I turn on my girl dancing main, the solo between them. Now that looks a bit clunky. So what I'll do is I'll add a bit of blur. Well, first of all, I'll change the transfer mode to overlay. Transfer modes are always your friend. If I turn off the girl layer, I can see there's just a subtle white fringe or halo there. And so I'll add a bit of blur to our light wrap. So Gaussian should do it. I can always try fast box blur if needed. And literally just 1 or 2 pixel blur. You try adding another element there, and that'll be a shadow. So I'm going to use the shadows that are in the footage to begin with to sit onto the ground and see how it goes. So duplicate duplicated that. Click Alt and drag, and then release it. Boom. Takes all the same properties, scale, rotation, position, etc. as the original. So obviously we don't want black and white, or we don't want a green, so we'll turn it black and white by using the tint effect. Bang, there we go. So now we need the curves. What we're trying to do is just make as much background separation between here and back there. It's going to be high contrast basically, almost like a luma key. Now it doesn't matter that the detail's going all over the place. Something like that will work, and then we'll grab the mask tool and just click and drag out and around like that. Make a decent sized oval mask. Hit F to bring up the mask feather. crank it up a bit. And we can use the mask tool by hitting G twice, and it turns into this feather icon. So what you can do is, as you can see, when you bring it over the edge of the mask, it turns into a plus. And if you click at that point, it will give you a way to control the feather. So you might want it less feathering over here and greater feathering here. So you can see there's not much difference, or not much of a feather there. It's much bigger here. So let's see how that looks. Oh, you can see how it looks, but let's change it, transfer mode to multiply. Bang. Straight away looks a lot more legit and grounded. Now the feather on the mask will need some adjustment, especially at the top. So the shadow, I think, goes a little too high there. But it's also helping get rid of some of the keying artifacts and spill and everything all around her feet. So it's a really cool little workflow trick that's straight away made a massive, massive difference in quality. And you can adjust your mask to taste. A couple more things we can add to the scene. It's 3D tracked. I've got the word text sitting in there, so let's do something with that. So in order to get the 3D text looking the part, I'm pre-composing it along with the 3D camera, the background plate, and putting it into its own separate pre-comp. That way I can change the render to the default, from the default to the C4D render to give it that nice extrusion. Changing the colors and the layout of the text a little as well. I'm also adding some 3D lights to help light it a bit. There's an ambient light to make everything a bit brighter and parallel light shining in from the background. I've also duplicated the cutout of the, or chroma key cutout of the girl, and tilted it down 90 degrees to act as her shadow. I've also duplicated my text layer and added an effect, a free effect called VC Reflect from Video Copilot, which is great for adding reflections to your backgrounds, this sort of thing. And then I've added a little matte to the effect so it can help it sit into the water that little bit better. So a little bit longer this tutorial, but certainly gives a good idea of what you can achieve with the keying and basic compositing process. So again, the footage that we've got here isn't the best match whatsoever. You know, the lighting conditions are completely opposite to each other, but you know, other things you can add to get into the scene can help sell it somewhat. So anyway, hopefully you learned something, and you're able to take some of these procedures and processes into your own projects, and we'll see you in the next one.